Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this lesson we're going to talk about what HTML is and how we are going to use it to create websites in this class. The main reference for all of the information that we need to learn pertaining to HTML and CSS in the second term is this website called W3schools.com. Now the reason why I use this website as a reference and I use it even still as, I've been doing this for, 15, 20 years at this point. I still use W3 Schools as a reference for everything that I do. And the reason why is because W3 Schools is created by the same people who set all the rules for how websites are built. The World Wide Web Consortium, they create all the rules for how this stuff works. And then they created this website to teach people how to follow those rules specifically. So on the home page for W3schools.com, I'm just going to click Learn HTML. And it's going to pull up some lessons here. I'm going to, let's zoom in a bit so it's easier for you guys to see. Okay, that's good. All right, beautiful. So HTML is the standard markup language for web pages. Essentially what that means is HTML is the language we use to build the structure of a web page. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Now, this is generally what HTML looks like, right? You can probably tell already what's happening just by looking at this. But if we click Try It Yourself, we can see how this works in action. So we have this thing up here is called the doc type. This determines exactly what version of HTML we are using. For this example, it's HTML5. Then we have the HTML tag. Now notice there's another HTML tag down here, but this one has a / in front of it. HTML works by having an open tag and a close tag for almost every element you're going to write. And so the HTML element that we have here, everything between the open tag and the close tag is inside of the HTML element. And what this means is that this is all HTML code. That's what this HTML element is, what it's standing for. Then we have, let's put some space here so it's easier to tell this stuff apart. Then we have the head element. So we have our open tag for the head element and the close tag for the head element. And inside the head element, we have one element called title. Now, the title element, essentially what it does is it changes what goes in the tab up here, right? So you can change what information is in this tab up here. So that's the title. Now, things that go inside the head element are things like metadata, what language you're using, all the stuff that's not generally going to show up on the page goes inside the head. Now, conversely, we have the body element. And inside the body element, we have everything that will be displayed on the page. So we have our H1, which is a header. We're going to get into that in a minute with some text on there. It says this is a heading. Then we have a paragraph element that says this is a paragraph. That's essentially how to write HTML. Let's go back. So there are tons of exercises in each of these lessons. There are exercises you can go through. I'm not going to make you do the exercises, but it is good for you to get in there and try out the exercises if maybe something's if you're struggling a bit with something. Let's go into the introduction. So, as I said before, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the standard language for creating websites. Most things in HTML are wrapped around or are inside of an element, and these elements are pretty common. So we have our doc type, which again determines that or tells our browser that we're using HTML5. Then we have our HTML element, which is the root element of an HTML page. We have the head element, which contains meta information. We have the title element, which is the title for the HTML page, which is shown in the browser's title bar or the Pages tab. Then we have the body element, which encompasses everything that will exist on our web page. An H1 is a header and a P is a paragraph. So here's essentially how elements work. You start with an open tag for your element with the tag name inside of these angle brackets, right? These angle brackets here. Then you have your content, and then you have an end tag, and the end tag is designated by a /. So for an H1 element, it would be open angle bracket, H1, close angle bracket, my first heading, and then open angle bracket / H1, close angle bracket. That's essentially how we write HTML. It's actually pretty easy. Hopefully you can see how easy it is just by looking at this. Now, some web browsers are not going to be compatible with specific code that we write. All of our projects in this class are targeted to Chrome, Google Chrome, or Microsoft Edge. We are not writing any code that will be compatible with Microsoft or Internet Explorer, mainly because Internet Explorer is an old deprecated web browser, and it's actually not going to be supported anymore. All right. Let's talk about the structure of a web page. We have, again, like I said, we have this overall HTML wrap that kind of wraps around everything. Then we have the head, and then whatever's inside the head. Then we have the body, and then whatever's inside the body is going to be displayed on the web page. We don't need to talk about the history of HTML. Let's go into editors. Now, here's one thing about HTML editors. There are tons of them out there. You can use all kinds of stuff. You can even use Notepad to write HTML code. There is a specific editor that I will be using in this class, which I will teach you guys a little bit later. But for right now, just know that really anything that allows you to write in HTML or write basic text will allow you to create web pages. So we're going to skip past this because this isn't applicable to us. And actually, maybe let's talk about the editor really quickly. So the editor I'm going to use this year is called Replit. It's repl.it. And actually, let's go to the home page for Replit so that we're... let me sign out. I think that's what's confusing it. It's just jumping straight into my stuff. So let's jump out. There we go. So this is what Replit looks like. It is an online platform that allows us to do all kinds of programming, including writing web pages. So, oh, my face is covering it. Over here on the side, we can see that we have login and sign up. If you haven't created a Replit account, you can click sign up and then click the Google button and then sign in with your UMA email address. That's the easiest way for you to get access. I'm going to go back to the home page. And then I'm going to log into my Replit account. And I can see that it's me because it's David. All right, cool. So now at this point, we can choose, I'm going to get rid of this ad here. We can choose what language we want to use. Now for us, we are going to use HTML. HTML. And the option that it gives us is HTML, CSS, and JS. I'm going to click there. And this will create the basic outline for our web pages for us. I'm going to get my face out of the way. Notice that it gives us 3 files. It gives us index.html, script.js, and style.cs. For the first term, we actually don't need these 2. Yes, delete it. And yes, delete it. All we're focused on is the HTML. The other thing that we don't need is we don't need this link element, and we don't need this script element. We can get rid of those. Okay, so now we have our basic HTML program. Let's go back to HTML basics so we can talk about how this stuff is created. The doc type, there's more details about the doc type we don't need. Let's talk about headings. So there are 6 different headings in HTML, and they're designated H1 through H6, and they get smaller as the number goes up. So let me show you what that looks like. In HTML, we might have a H1, H1, And we might have an H, let's say a 3. H3. And let's throw an H6 on there as well, just for fun. H6. So let's take a look at what those look like. I'm going to hit run. So on my web page over here, you can see the H1 is very, very big. The H3 is, I don't know, about the same size as regular text. And the H6 is super tiny. So these are just header elements that will separate content on our page. And again, you can go from H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down. Then we have paragraph elements. Paragraph elements are super easy. It's just any text that I want to show up on my page. So if I create a paragraph, then we can see that we have paragraph text right there on the screen. Notice it's not bolded like the headers are. It's just regularly formatted text. Links is something we're going to get into later. We're not really going to dig into links right now, but you can create links in HTML. Images is also something we're going to get into later, but you can create images in HTML as well. Let's talk about the elements themselves. So there are tons of elements out here. Now, nesting is something that's very important to understand. Let's get into this example. So notice that everything in our example here is all the way to the left on the left margin, but in Replit, notice that some of them are kind of indented. This is because Replit respects nesting. It shows us which elements are inside of others. So our HTML element here encompasses everything inside of HTML, and notice none of this information is flush with HTML. That makes it easy for us to see what's inside of the HTML element. Same thing with head up here. Let me get rid of that. Head up here, and body as well. So we can see what's inside the body because of the indentation, and we can see what's in the head because of the indentation. Attributes. Attributes are important. They're modifiers that we can place on specific elements. We're going to get into those later. These are our headings here that we just described. Paragraph elements. Styles and formatting we're going to get into later. But for right now, we should have enough to actually complete our first project, which I will get into in the next video. But the big thing that you need to remember is that HTML is all about elements. So if I say, hey, this is an H1 element, you know that I'm referring to these tags, this open and close tag, and the content on the inside of the element itself. All right. Now, if it's something that needs to be displayed on our screen, it has to be inside of the body element. All right. If it's not in the body, it will not be displayed. Okay. What else? You know, those are the really big important things. The rest of it we will explain as we build the first assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video here, and we will move on to the next assignment, or to the first assignment, and take the quiz and then go to the My First Web Page assignment, where we will build our first web page together. All right, thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you later.